Hi, I'm Steve Tierney and this is the Madhouse podcast. Today I'm going to cover some of the important developments in the Kingdom of Bereny, but before I do, just first of all, apologies for the audio of yesterday. It obviously was the first time that I've done a podcast and it is a learning process. Hopefully it will be improved today and I will keep tweaking, adjusting it each time that I do a podcast to try and make sure it gets better and better. So as we discussed yesterday, this is the follow-on from the events in the Kingdom of Bereny in the game of Dungeon World. And that includes the death of the old ruler, the apparent assassination of the chosen successor, and an outbreak of violence and sedition up and down the kingdom. So what I'm going to do is go through each of the points of conflict and talk about what's happened there and what may be happening in the future. First of all, White Citadel down in the south there, and hopefully you'll see a map on the screen so you'll have an idea of what is where. The trouble in White Citadel related to a minor noble inciting rebellion against the Duke of the city. Militia were on hand and the initial problems were quickly quelled. In an ensuing investigation, it would appear that these southern rebels were supporters of an independence movement in Frostwald and the southern glaciers. At the moment, the situation is under control, but developments nearby suggest that they may not remain so for long. Elsewhere in the south, a group of Frostwald peasants and farmers have joined forces with several large clans of glacier barbarians. They are concentrated in the most eastern regions of Frostwald, so nowhere near White Citadel, but still in the south, and so still potentially a connected problem. And they are demanding the right to choose their own leaders. So far, their forces have remained in the area and have not pressed further into Bereny. The city of Gorst, that sits in the border of the Homeward and Winterward in the west, had a major uprising of rebels who declared their allegiance to the Red Knights. Although they do not appear to be directly attached to that force, so it could just be words, or it could be that the two units are somehow directly related. Units of royal militia were sent to free Gorst from their influence, and they appear to have failed to do so. Although there are still pockets of fighting, reports suggest that the Gorst has broadly fallen to the enemy. A man called Conrad Elric is the leader of the rebel forces in Gorst, and has declared the city part of something he is calling the Blood Empire. It remains unclear what his resources are or how strong his grip is on the city. In the far north of the kingdom, it appears the Goblin nation has found a leader again. The Goblins were defeated in a short-lived war some years ago, but with attacks from the west and south, they may be using the complicated situation and the stretched Berenyan resources to try their luck. Royal militia have held them at bay so far. Adventurers taking on the Red Knights in their sky base over the Mirrormain dungeon appear to have the enemy on the back foot. Pushing them further and further back into the base, the Berenyan adventurers who accepted the Royal Commission are winning on this front so far. Rebels and Red Knights who had Royal Militia under pressure near Merrywell have encountered the Berenyan reinforcements and the battle has raged across open land. Royal forces appear to be struggling with the sheer numbers and bizarre tactics of the enemy, presumably because of the leadership of a mysterious character called the Red Hood. The city of Lionel has fallen to the enemy. Royal Militia have been defeated, and rebel troops now control the city. A fierce elven warrior known as Blitz is apparently in command for the time being. We don't know how long that will be for. Obviously, the sooner the better that rebels are removed. Great, but the situation so far is quite dire. The rebels have made no demands yet, and they have not yet declared for the Red Knights, but it does seem likely that the groups are related because it has been shown they are related elsewhere. The city of Lionel sits at the very centre of the kingdom and is all too close to the capital city, Crownheart. The Red Knights, who had taken control of a key asset and transportation point, Brace Bridge, have met fierce challenge from adventurers on Royal Commission there. The Red Knights were driven from their bridge and fell back into a sky base. They were pursued and the brave adventurers are smashing their way through the enemy effectively, so at least some good news. The overall picture though is a mixed bag. No conflict in the kingdom can be considered good news, and it has therefore fallen to the royal courts to make an urgent decision about the leadership of the kingdom during this emergency. In a public announcement, Mark Anthony Drummer, Clerk First Class to the Royal Courts, has announced that the new ruler of the kingdom will be Prince Dickon. It is now down to the prince to appoint his state advisors, to clarify the dukes and the duchesses of the cities, to appoint a high priest and a high mage, and to set in place plans to drive the insurrection and rebellion from the kingdom of Bereny. While I'm here, can I point Madhouse players and interested parties to my novel in progress, Henchman, which can be listened to as a podcast or read on its own website. Links in the descriptions. It's hopefully quite an interesting story about a supervillain henchman and how he goes about living in a rather dark world. If you're enjoying this podcast series, please do remember to click like, subscribe and ring that magic bell. It won't summon anything to live in your basement, at least not this time. Laters.